Welcome back for another episode of TBI Uncovered. The platform that allows brain survivors, those with brain injuries, brain conditions, child survivors, ABN survivors, survivors alike, gunshot survivors, those with various brain conditions, and wheelchair survivors, and all kind of people survivors, and in general, all can come on TBI Uncovered. They're welcome. Caregivers, medical professionals, organizations as well to share their stories and provide tips for resources to those impacted. On today's episode, I have an amazing guest who's an enthusiast of all sorts. He's an artist, entrepreneur, founder of TBI Thrivers, storyteller, and yoga enthusiast. As you may guess, he's also a traumatic brain survivor. So let's welcome another survivor changing the world, Beckett Johnson. Uh-oh. Hi, Beckett. This is so weird.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Gotta give you good welcome. What like a radio announcer. Come to the stage.
I know. I feel like I should dance in or something.
The theme music.
Right?
Oh my goodness. So please start off by telling us who you are and who you are and back to your story.
Okay, who am I? Well, I'm a brain injury survivor. 8 years ago, April 20th, 2014, I suffered a TBI that I had a 1% chance of survival. Um, Long story short, I jumped on the back of a pickup truck of a friend who was showing up at a storage unit. She gunned it, I flew off, and I was in ICU that night. So I hit the back of my head, stayed closed wound, and I had a basilar skull fracture, lost my taste and smell, and 90% of my hearing in my left ear. And, the rest was history. Changed my life forever. And I had no healthcare coverage at the time when my injury happened. So literally, my healing journey, I had to do all on my own and try to figure it out because the hospital pretty much released me 4 days later and was like, "Good luck." I still didn't even know who I was when they wheeled me out. Even my mom was like, "He doesn't even know his name." And they're like, "Well, nothing else we can do. Just if he falls, bring him back because he could die because of where I hit my head. And if any more clear fluid comes out of his ears, bring him back because that's his spinal fluid."
The fluid. What?
Yeah, because they thought because where I hit, they had me in a neck brace, I guess, for days, and I don't remember the hospital. I have flashes of it, but I was told, and my friend said I was like always trying to take it off because I felt like I couldn't breathe. So they were afraid I had snapped my spine. Luckily, I didn't. But so yeah, they were like, if you see clear fluid, good luck. So that kind of sent me on this journey. And back then, right, there wasn't a lot about brain injury. I tried finding books. Like, I remember just getting on the internet and trying to figure out, like, what do I do with, like, nobody around me had ever heard of a brain injury. Nobody knew what to do with me. So my journey was kind of on my own. So 8 years later, I started TBI Thrivers a couple years ago. I've been facilitating workshops, working with other survivors, with other nonprofits, and decided if I can help anybody not go through what I went through, then this was all worth it.
And how long? What year was that?
2014, so it's been 8 years.
And you said there was nothing about brain. Because my injuries are okay. So I remember. Mm, it may not be a whole lot about brain infection. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder what it ended up. I'm sure it's been around for a long time because people get brain injuries all the time. But for it to be like mainstream to get into, I wonder what year that
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, there wasn't any, like, I remember going to bookstores, and the issue was because I had come out, right, I didn't need, like, care. I didn't need a nurse. They kind of tossed, and I know a lot of survivors deal with it, they kind of tossed me aside. You know what I mean? They're like, okay, he's got memory issues and stuff, but whatever, like, good luck. Like, and when I went to my first retreat, they were even amazed. They were like, out of all the survivors here, there's 23 of us. You're the only one that doesn't have a caregiver, and you're the only one not only trying to heal from your brain injury, but also caregive for yourself. Like, we don't know how you're doing it. And so one of their speech therapists actually ended up taking me under her wing to kind of help me with memory issues because I had no, like, you should have a team. I didn't even know that. They're like, you should be seeing a therapist, you should be seeing like, you should have a team of people, and they never told me that. They just wheeled me out of the hospital with a bucket in my, because I was still kind of throwing up and I didn't have my balance, and she just like, don't worry, we'll put a bucket in your lap and we'll wheel you out. And it was like, bye. Yeah.
I've never heard that in my life. Like, wow, that's really extreme. That's horrible. You in Arizona?
Yeah. Like I just
Was that in Arizona at the time?
was it what?
Was that in Arizona?
No, that was actually in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was
Okay.
living in Charlotte. I had been living there for 20 years, and it happened at one of the local hospitals there in Charlotte, and that was just what they did. And I was convinced after that probably a lot of homeless people have TBIs because if I didn't have my friends or family there, they would have just wheeled me out and did what? Like I would have ended up in the streets because I didn't even know to eat. I didn't even know how to take care. Like those thoughts weren't even running through my mind. You know what I mean? I wasn't coherent enough.
Wow. That's so crazy. I'm still thrown up if you 4 days. I'm like, get out, get like,
Yeah.
I'm still blown away by that. Like, this were you were bleeding? Were you or
Mine was closed wound. I had blood coming out of my ears and nose, but because the back of my head stayed closed, which they said actually was worse, it would have been better had it broken open, I guess. They were nervous about the pressure in my brain. They had warned my friends and family, if the pressure doesn't stop, we're going to have to drill because it's getting worse. And luckily, one of my friends had a prayer circle going and, had called the spiritual center and was like, look, we need all the help we can get. And luckily for me, the blood stopped. So they never had to drill. But I still had a severe, injury. And because I didn't have the healthcare coverage, they had me in ICU for 2 days. And I was then put me down to a regular room for 2 more days. And then just, like I said, kicked me out. It was like, okay,
what if it wasn't as serious as it could have been? Because I'm all the way up. Like, yeah, 4 days over. Like this was hard. This was hard. I gotta get past it. This was hard. I don't know. I know it's bad, but it's not that bad.
Well, and my thing is, how do you do that as a hospital? You know what I mean? Like, how do you know that your patient has no idea who he is? I didn't even know what year it was. I said it was 1983. And my friends were like, "What happened in 1983?" I go, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't, even my mom had said, she goes, you don't know what it's like to sit in a room with your child and hope they remember the word penny. Because they would come in and I guess give me words and then come back hours later and ask, like, what did we tell you? And, I couldn't remember that. I didn't even know that I signed paperwork. So I'm like, did I even sign paperwork to be released? And they're like, oh, yeah.
Bizarre. We're gonna move. This was already paid. So this pandemic has been rough on a lot of people, especially survivors. How are you doing mentally, emotionally, physically?
How am I doing mentally and physically?
And emotionally?
It's been a long road. I think the first year, I look at my healing as like segments. You know what I mean? And the first year was all about getting used to the physical. I used to tilt to the left. I didn't have a lot of good balance. In fact, I had to walk with like a stick, to keep me upright. And so it was all figuring that out. Luckily, my friends in North Carolina threw me a fundraiser to try to help. And I got a lady had heard about my story and she was an audiologist. So she actually, donated a hearing aid so I could try to hear, because they knew that was tiring my brain. So that first year, once I got used to the physicalness of like, okay, these are my issues, then the second year was all emotional. It was, you don't realize how much society deals with taste until you can't taste. So not tasting and smelling everything, everybody like, oh, does this taste good? I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I still can't taste anything. Like the only thing I can taste are berries. I can taste now. Back then, I could taste berries, but I couldn't tell you what kind of berries. Now I can tell you they're strawberries or blueberries, but I still have no taste. So yeah, I can't taste anything, and I can't smell anything. So yeah, I know. And I get the questions a lot, like, well, how do you eat? And I'm like everybody else eats. I just don't enjoy it as much. You know what I mean? So that, it played into my depression. You wouldn't think it would, but it did because I had to not only are you struggling to figure out how do I fit into society now, but now I really don't fit into society because I can't partake in, like, going to restaurants, I would forget to eat. You know what I mean? And people are like, how do you forget to eat? I'm like, because it's not enjoyable to me anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. So once I got through that and I went through therapy. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny. People still forget, and some of my friends feel bad. They're like, because I just say, yeah, it smells great, or yeah, it tastes good.
Oh my goodness, Beckett. My goodness. Oh, I'm heartbroken. Oh no. Oh, Jesus. Jesus, too much.
It's okay. After 8 years, you realize, like, I had to reassess and refigure it out. You know what I mean? I lost
You're just.
three and yeah, 2.5 of my senses. My smell, my taste, and half my hearing. So you adjust. And so I went through therapy. I did EMDR therapy, and that helped me emotionally get through everything I needed to get through. And then, as we all know, a lot of it's our own my faith.
Yes, absolutely.
That alone, people are like, what really got you through? And I said, honestly, what really got me through was I didn't die. I had a 1% chance of living. And obviously I was kept here for a reason. So now I make the most of it, so if I can't taste and smell, that's not so bad considering I could be dead.
But you could see that the words was also value depression and wow. The little things, just the little things.
Yeah,
Wow.
it is.
So we had to taste the blessing, the season. I mean, the process of blessing to have. We take it for granted so much. It's such a blessing to have the process. Wow. On your Instagram page, you share about mindset. So, how important is shifting the mindset after an injury?
I think it's crucial. I think it's critical. I think it's something I talk about with my group, and I think it's and I think we've all experienced this where you join support groups and people complain, and not that complaining is bad, but when that's all that is, like my head was, yeah, your head's killing you, and it's like, okay, my head hurts, and it's like, yeah, it hurts, but like, now what do I do with this, right? Sitting here complaining a day in and day out, isn't helping me move forward and deal with this. So, and I'm not all about the spiritual bypassing, like the fake positivity. I'm not saying that. We have to sit in the grief. We have to grieve who we once were. We have to navigate that path. That's important. But I think knowing not to set up, like I tell my group, we want to travel down Sad Street. We don't want to set up shop there.
I like that.
Right. We don't want to live there. We don't want to have a store. We want to navigate that path. So I think mindset is critical in the fact of really seeing how you navigate this path, because it's hard already, and it goes back to that quote that reminds me, like, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And and people sometimes get mad when I say that, but I'll look at stuff. I would do this for myself and go, how much am I what suffering am I adding to this that's already, you know what I mean, that I don't need to be.
Yes.
I
agree with that, and I'm for, like you said, grieving and things like that. But how long? How are you gonna stay in that place? How long? There's no time frame, and I understand that. But at some point, you gotta say, okay, step out. Like, it took me about 7 years to be okay. If I could say I was hurt, I was hurt, all that kind of stuff. 7 years, and that's quite a long time. But I don't. I embrace every step that got me here. I embrace it. You definitely have to grieve it. Now, people get it messed up is when they say, "I don't. It's okay. I'm over it." They didn't grieve. Then years later, it's like you snap that proper crack. Was like, oh, I don't know, because you didn't grieve it. You didn't have the proper time to heal and to so. The healing is definitely necessary in all aspects. Pretty much physically, all the above. So,
yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. I can't tell you how many survivors, and I've met hundreds. I've done a lot of workshops. I've been in a lot of retreats, and every time I meet a survivor that's 11 years out, 10 years out, they're still crying or they're still upset, and they're like, I can't get to happy. And exactly what you're saying. I said, because you didn't grieve. You can't skip that step. You've got to grieve. And I don't care, and like you said, at some point, like, and if you can't do it, and for me, it got to the point where it's like, I knew everything to do, right? I knew to think more positive. I knew how to, and I would have told you, F off, right? Like, that's not helping me right now. How do I navigate through this darkness? How do I swim? You know, because I felt like I was treading water and I was just about to drown. And, you know, that's when I realized I need therapy. I need somebody who can help guide me through this, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And I think that's so important, and there's such strength in admitting that I'm weak in this and I need help, and I need help to navigate this. And so that's what I did, and I saw a therapist for a year, and it's just now 8 years where I'm feeling I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's good.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like I don't get upset. I don't cry about it. You know what I mean? It doesn't affect me in that way. If anything, I look at my injury now as a blessing.
Yes, absolutely. I just had therapy this year too. So you had therapy this year, you said? This year? You had therapy?
Yeah. Well, no, I had therapy going that second, third year when I started dealing with emotions. I grabbed a therapist and we did EMDR therapy because that was when the emotions hit me hard.
Okay.
You know, and it was that feeling, and I know we all feel it, of I'm in this dark tunnel. I don't ever feel like I'm ever going to get out of this. You know, how do I stop treading water? And I remember telling my therapist that. I said, I feel like I'm treading water. And she looked at me and she said, so stop treading. And I'm like, well, then I feel like I'm going to like drown, right? Like I'm never going to get, and she's like, so drown. And at the time I was scared, you're like, what? But I got what she meant. You know what I mean? It was let go. It was you need to create. Yeah, she said, you know, you're living in survival mode and we're not meant to live in survival mode, and you've got to let that go. Absolutely. But I did it with her help. So I saw her for like a good year. You know, while I did other things for my own mindset, like support group and finding other, you know, modalities of meditation and mindfulness. And, you know, I also worked on it myself and realizing nobody's going to do this for me.
Yeah, you got to do the work.
Right? And nobody wants to hear that.
No, you got to do the work. There's no ways around. You got to do the work.
Right.
Only way you do it is to go. Only way to get through it is to go through it. Any way you get over is to go through it.
Yeah, and nobody, like, they all want the magic pill, right? Like, what do you mean? You know what I mean? And it's like, listen, right, I haven't met a survivor yet that can skip that step and get to thrive. Like, I haven't, you know what I mean? And you got to do the work. Right. You know what I mean? It's, you know, and the thing is, it's rewarding, and you realize that once I get through that, like I tell my group and people I work with, you're never going to have to swim in that pond again. You know what I mean? Like, yes, there still will be sadness, but now you have tools to use to know how to navigate that and how to, you know, work through that. So, you know, it's something that sucks and nobody likes the way it feels and it's not fun, and we know all that. You know, I hear all the time, easier said than done. And I said, whoever said this was going to be easy?
Nobody.
Right?
Nobody said that. Yeah, I love your energy. It's so amazing. So you came to a place of acceptance through therapy, correct?
You know, it's therapy and support groups and finding other survivors and, you know, creating friends with them and like I said, working on my own mindset. You know what I mean? Like I said, okay, this is painful, but am I adding more suffering? Am I making this worse for myself? And really looking at my own beliefs and my own tools and shifting and understanding I got to change this. You know what I mean? Like so I continued, you know, my adage was, if there's something that's going to help me and ain't going to hurt me, I'll try it. I don't care what it is.
See, a lot of people don't have that mentality though. A lot of people don't have that mentality.
Right.
Some people are okay being in pain because the attention or I don't know. But some people like being in pain. You know, I don't know why, but they do. And they're not ready. Okay, I want to work on it. Some people aren't there yet. And it's like, why you wouldn't feel pain? But some people just do.
Well, and there's comfort sometimes in dysfunction. If people are used to that, and that's the other thing people don't want to hear, right? And there's a quote I love, which I say all the time, and my mom will make fun of me, and it's, when we get sick of our own bullshit, we change. And that's the reality. And I didn't say it, I think it was one of those famous author women. I don't remember, I'd have to look it up. You know what I mean? She said it wasn't my quote, but I was like, that's true. When you finally get to the point, like I was even with my own pain, and I went to my therapist and said this, I don't care if I got to lay on your floor and cry for the next 2 years. I just don't want to feel like this
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. Just tell me what I got to do. And she was like, you're a therapist's dream. And, that's the point you have to get to. And you're right.
Yeah.
Some people will never get there. And it's like they would just rather.
I don't know if they don't say that, but it'll take longer to admit your feelings. If I picture you, I'm gonna feel hurt. It'll hurt me. The more you deny it, the longer it's gonna take. It's just about admitting it. I am hurt. I am feeling depressed. I am feeling sad. You gotta admit it. And it's okay. You don't have to be tough. You don't have to be strong. Like, it's okay. I say it's okay to be okay.
Well, right, exactly, right. There's that stigma that we can't do that. Nobody wants to hear your sob story, and I used to have mentors too that would. My one mentor, my spiritual, she used to call herself my spiritual mama. I would call her, and she'd give me 5 minutes to tell my story, right? So basically, 5 minutes to just cry and complain, and she'd be like, "Are you done?"
Yeah.
I'd be like, "That," because she was like, "That's it," because this isn't helping you. So you done? Have you gotten that out? And I would be like, yeah, okay, I'm done. And she's like, okay, can we now work on something else? Let's move through this. And I was like, yeah, well, you got to surround yourself with those people who are willing to also look at you and who is your tribe, who is around you. And you need people that are also going to say to you, like, hey, you need to buck up, right? You need to get out of this. Like, you've been in this too long. And I get it. The time frame, like you said, is different for everybody. So there's no judgment, right? It might take you, it might take you a couple years. Some people say, well, how long? I don't know.
I said 2 7. So
right. You know what I mean? I've met survivors who had worse injuries than me, but were doing way better than me after year one. You know what I mean? I've met survivors who didn't have it so bad, but then 11 years out, they're still struggling. I mean, everybody's journey is different, so it really depends on the person. It's just, are you? I think key for me is, am I always moving forward?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, am I doing what I can to help myself right now to the best of my ability? And if the answer is yes, then great, celebrate that. But, if you're not being real with yourself, like you said, and you're not admitting it and saying, like, it took a lot for me to say, I was borderline, my therapist called it passively suicidal.
Wow. But some people are okay being in the funk. They're okay with it. They've accepted it. This is for me, and okay, I don't like the emotion. If I get hurt, like I don't like that. I don't like it. So I actually care for stay positive, make sure I stay encouraged, making sure I put things in place. Did I say moments? Absolutely. I'm like everybody else. I'll stay there. I'll stay stuck in that place. I know how to care for myself. A lot of people don't know how to do that, unfortunately. So.
Well, right, and that's where I think finding mentors, whatever, therapists, coaches, there's tons of us out there doing it, and that was one of the reasons I started my group, was to give them tools, like real tools, you know what I mean, that they could take home and go, okay, I can use this to help me navigate whatever I'm going through.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's important because it's a practice. And that's why I tell people, this is a practice. It's going to take time. It's going to take baby steps. Like, just give yourself grace and understand you're doing the best you can.
Yes, be gentle with yourself. Absolutely. So that's what you're doing with your I call my chance of life 2.0 chance. What is your 2.0 chance of life?
I love that, the 2.0 chance. Now my mission is to help as many survivors as I can. As many of us, it's nice to see so many people like yourself and more that I'm running into, that I feel like we're that initial wave, right? Because now we're more survivors helping survivors, where, I have found, a lot of people are kind of like, I'm over dealing with people who've never had a brain injury telling me what to do, because you don't have any idea. So that has been my goal and my mission. I went and got certified in life coaching and clinical mindfulness, and because I was doing the work anyways. I was running and facilitating workshops, and and I was doing one on grief. I was doing one on how to deal with people who don't know how to deal with your TBI or don't want to deal with your TBI. So I
Mm-hmm.
started this online community, been running it for 2 years, and it's been amazing to help survivors thrive in new
What's it
ways.
called?
The TBI Thrivers is a support group. Yeah, so we got that every Mondays at 1 we meet, and it's changed, and I always tell them the group, this is our group, not my group. So we always make everything as a group decision,
Mm-hmm.
which has been amazing to see so many of them come in with such low self-esteem or feel not empowered and change. Like I get to see them change through support of other survivors. So that's been amazing. And then I just did a bunch of research and talking to survivors, which I still want to do too. I'm opening up a new group for kind of survivors that are beyond their TBI, meaning like I know what it is, I know how to manage it, right? Like I get all that. Now what? Now
Mm-hmm.
how do I write a book? Now how do I start a business? Now how do I deal with relationships? Right. How do I do that in right? Then that's the high functioning part, right? Like I can deal with my TBI, but how do I now do that and chase my life purpose? Because what I found in research is there's nothing really like that out there. There's everything for the TBI person who's just had their injury, or you know what I mean, they're still trying to come around, but what happens to where's the next grade? Where's the next level? You know what I mean? How do I get into that? So I'm excited about it. I've just launched it. I'll have my first meetup with them next month. I'm having people sign up because I do a little interview with them to make sure it's a good fit and they're in the right place, right? Because I want people to have a good experience. And if it's not a good fit, then I'm not going to just push people in there, because it's not good for anybody.
So what do you do with the meetup? Do you like talk, have discussions? What do y'all do there?
Yeah, at the meetup, it's just really casual. We've kept it roundtable. And so I've had guest speakers come in. And my thing was to introduce them to more options that maybe most people don't talk about. So more holistic approaches. So I've had a hypnotherapist come in. I had an herbalist come in. I've had a brain nutritionist come in. I've had, an emotion code person come in. You name it, we've had it, where they speak and give them a little bit of reference to this is what I'm doing, this is how I can help you. And then we just let them answer and ask questions. So it's very casual, but it's very giving in the fact that, it's all us. So sometimes we discuss themes. Like 2 weeks ago, one of them said, hey, can we talk about the theme, nobody's coming to save you? Yeah. Yeah, right. So let's talk about it. And so we do, and they'll bring up their wins and they'll also bring up stuff that maybe they're struggling with. But it's not a group where you're gonna find a lot of people going like we talked about. They're just gonna keep complaining. They're like, hey, I'm struggling about this and I'm looking for you guys to what is your experience? Is there anything that helped you? How can I get through this? Is there, tools that I have? So they've really become their own support group, which is as a facilitator something I love to see. You know what I mean? Because it's about empowering them. So I had to take 2 weeks off, and when they facilitated without me and came up with new group rules because we have rules, and they said, "Hey, we started a new rule without you, and we wanted to let you know." And I'm like, "Okay, great."
You're a good
You know
leader.
what I mean?
Our leaders,
Yes.
our leaders are like that. That's wonderful. Wow, that's beautiful. I love
Yeah,
that.
and that's to me that's what I want. I want them to feel inspired and empowered and be able to. Some of them want to work with other survivors. Some of them just want to feel empowered and inspire others. And if this group can do that, that's been my whole goal.
That's beautiful. I love that. So what kind of arts are you?
Hmm?
You're an artist? What kind of arts
Yes.
are you?
So that's a loaded question, as you should know.
I'm like, you
So
a rapper? You like a painter? Or you like a creative person? What kind of artist are you?
we tend to do it all. I'm actually an abstract painter. I've been a painter for a long time. I have art up in Canada and stuff like that, and I take a break. But I also love photography, which is my other passion. So I do a lot of photography. I do a lot of that, and I'm trying to now navigate that world as well. I just did an oracle deck that I'm looking at getting printed with my artwork and symbolism and stuff into that. So it's just whatever piques my interest and it's creative. And it helps to express those times in my injury where I couldn't.
Okay. Okay.
You know, to paint something and to be able to do like I don't know if you've ever done that mask project.
I can't say that I have.
Really? I might have to have you do that then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something we've done at the brain injury retreats, but it's something that you can have actually sent to you where they send you a mask and you paint it and
Okay.
you put it whatever on to represent your brain injury. What does it mean to you? And it's a powerful exercise, especially when you get a bunch of survivors doing it and caregivers. And then you explain like why did you create that mask? What does it represent? You know, what parts of you? And so I've done 3 or 4 of them, and it was interesting to see how my mask changed.
Because you're growing.
You know, yeah.
With it. I like it. It's good. So, as a storyteller, what kind of stories do you tell? Are you like are they about your injury, or are they like about a very serious thing?
You know, I think we all live stories. You know, everybody has every part of your life is a story, and some part of it is
Mm-hmm.
inspiring, and you never know. And so I think for me, my art, my photography mainly, my photography and videography. I mean, I went to school, I worked in the movies for 7 years. I was in
Really, movies.
production. Yeah,
I
I
don't
worked on like, yeah,
know.
I worked in Yaya Sisterhood, and I worked on The Patriot, and I worked on a lot. I was in the movie industry for 7 years. Yeah, and they were grooming me to be a producer, and it got to the point where I had to move to New York or LA, and I didn't want to go to either one. And
Wow.
I was like, I got into it because I like documentaries. You know, I love affecting people visually and emotionally, but when I got into the movies and I went, this is not the type of person I want to be a producer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I switched out, actually. I got one of my friends, I got him in the movies. He's still in it. He does audio for them. And I got into event marketing and got out of it. And
Hmm.
yeah, so it's part of my blood. So storytelling for me, I think right now is just mainly through my photography and any videography I do to be
I
able
love
to,
it.
if I can invoke a feeling or an emotion through something you can see and I can tell you a story,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like what you're doing with this platform,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's everything.
And it's so funny because you say storyteller. I'm like, I never call myself a storyteller, but I did write a book. So I am a storyteller in that essence. So I don't call myself an author. And so I'm also a producer too as well. So we have that in common. I'm currently working on my friend's film, Audible, and it's taking a second off, and we're almost done with it. Yay! So I do a
That's
couple of things as a survivor. So it's like it's not the end of the road. It's not you don't stop at brain. You don't stop there. You're still living. So we obviously got to take a change for a reason. So there's still like to live, right? So
yeah. And you should congratulations on doing that because doing a film and working in this industry is not. It's
whew,
yeah. I was producing my friend's show. He had a YouTube show, which we're on pause right now. I was producing it. It's not easy. You know
no,
what I mean? And my best friend has written a couple books, and I've been told you should write a book, and it's on right. It's on the to do list. I just
yeah.
haven't gotten to
Look
doing it.
into it. Look into it.
Yeah, it's hard, but to do film and work in feature, I mean, it's so rewarding, but it takes a lot of work, and people don't
It
realize
does.
that. And
Yeah, and
it's
I did my
important.
documentary too. When I was in the actual program, a clinical program. It was called it was a continuity program, clinical program, and it was a 10-month program. It was so extensive. Oh my God, so extensive. Now I almost quit a couple times. I'm not sure, I almost quit a couple times. I'm like, Erica, you can't quit. And so I had some friends tell me, encourage me things like that, but I almost gave up. But I'm glad I kept stepping with it because I do have the certificate and things like that. So I did pull through, but it's not easy. I think my documentaries were one on my YouTube page. I did by myself, and I'm in a wheelchair, right? I'm in a wheelchair, and I did by myself. I wish I knew what a survivor. So it was pretty cool to do that myself. It took me a whole lot of time to do that. So, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I did the video. I directed it. All kinds of stuff. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding though. Very rewarding.
It is. It's a lot. It's a lot of work, but it is rewarding, and it's. I always tell people when they tell me, though, I want to go to film school. I said, just work in the movies. You know what I mean? Like, just work in the movies because everybody starts the same. They all start as a production assistant.
Yeah.
You work your way up. You know what I mean? And I worked on multiple commercials and made for TV films, and like I learned a lot, and I have some great memories and some great friends still in the industry.
Yeah.
you know, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
And I did the cast, I did casting first. Casting, it started for casting. Then it developed to camping manager. Then that's producer. So I done almost every job.
It's the best way you learn. That's how you
Right.
figure out where you want to go.
It's experience too. So I'm appreciative of it, but it's definitely a lot of work. It's not easy at all. Not for the faint of heart.
No, but if you love it, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
And it takes your mind off of your own things. You know, it takes your mind off what you're going through. So a
Well,
good
and I think it's
distraction.
important. Yeah, what you said, brain injury isn't the end. And that's what I'm hoping with this next mastermind group, because it's called,
Yeah.
Self-Worth and Rediscovery Roadmap. And it's how do we now gain the self-confidence to live out our life purpose and understand our brain injury is just a small part of who we are. It's not everything.
No, it's what happened to you. It's what you are. What happened to you. So
Exactly.
I love that. Yoga enthusiast. Tell us about that. Yes.
I got what?
Yoga enthusiast.
It's yoga. It's helped me a lot in focus.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like focus, and it's funny. When you said that, I'm like, man, am I still an enthusiast? I don't know. That might have it might have changed. I know it might have changed, right? And that's the other part. I think that's the fun of this journey, right? Is rediscovering who we are and understanding something that worked for you a year ago or 2 years ago. It might not work for you now, and just the same thing. If you couldn't do something 2 years ago, doesn't mean you can't do it now. And yoga was one of those things that really helped me with balance and focus, because my brain did not want to shut off. It just wanted to, I would fall asleep. I actually had to retrain my brain to sleep. It took me about 5 years.
Oh.
Yeah, so I would fall asleep, but I would wake up at like 1 or 2, and my brain would just go. And so, like I couldn't get anything to calm it down. So I had to do night routines, and I again, you take it in baby steps and realize, okay, this is what I'm dealing with now, and that's what I'm going to. So yoga helped me to really calm that and focus and go, okay, like this is all I'm doing right now, and especially with balance. Balance was a big issue for me. So I try to do tree pose and just fall over, and I'm like, I'm not really a tree. I'm more of a palm tree.
A palm tree.
Right? Because they can sway and be flexible.
Oh,
It's
goodness.
like, I can't do this, but. So now I'm trying to do a little more hardcore fitness, but I actually had a moment probably a month ago, and I put it on my IG where I broke down crying because I couldn't do a simple workout. You know what I mean? I was trying to follow the person, but my brain and body weren't talking to each other. And I was like, well, I got mad, but then I kind of got upset because I thought I was better than that, right? Like I thought the connection was there, and it hit me kind of out of nowhere that it isn't there yet. You still got to work on this. And so this is right back to I had my process. I told my trainer, and he goes, okay, do you want me to go easy on you? I said, no, I just need the night to process it, to feel these emotions and to let them go. And I'm good. And it just means I got to work harder. That's all.
Oh, you might want therapy days. Well, I'm still therapy though, but when I said the particular therapy, back in June, well, I remember May. I had a real bad day. I think I cried. And I was so mad. I was so mad. Like, I should have this by now. I should do this. I'm so hard on myself. I'm so hard on myself. Oh my God, I'm so hard on myself. I don't need you to be hard on me. I'm hard on myself. So.
We all are. Yeah, we all are. I am too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing of realizing that, even people, I have the people come up to me in the grief workshop, and then they'll say that, well, I'm not, I'm just mad. I go, okay, so you're sad. Because, right, anger is still sadness. It's just a different form.
You're disappointed.
Right, because some people find it easier to be angry than sad, right? I can deal with this. I can't deal with the crying and the, you know what I mean? And I actually had a guy break down and start crying. And I remember hugging him, and he said, thank you. And I said, why? And he said, because I've been so angry for 4 years, and I realized I haven't grieved or cried about this, and that's really what I need to do. But it was amazing that once he got that realization, the shift that happened, the rest of the week at the retreat, and just embracing that, and I've touched base with him since then, and he's doing amazing. But it was that moment of right? I need to do this.
You gotta release. You gotta release. If y'all still listening, watch me. If you have been an injury, hurt, or whatever the case may be, you don't have to be a brain survivor. You have any kind of broken heart, whatever experience, release it. Because it just built up emotion that don't be there. So definitely release it. Cry about it, scream like you got to, whatever you gotta do, just release it because it's not holding you back from your potential. So
Yeah, it's therapeutic and it feels better. And I can't tell you how many I had people who had cancer who would reach out to me and go, "You inspired me so much by just watching you how you navigated your brain injury and how you did that, and it's helped me because trauma is trauma. I don't, yeah, I don't care how you had it. You know what I mean? It still needs to be released."
It's true. What comes to mind when you hear the word survivor?
So interesting you asked me this because I had a talk with another survivor the other day about that word. He hated the word survivor.
Why? I don't get it.
Well, because
it's a power thing, but
for me, for me, it's a powerful word, right? It means I overcame something.
Yeah.
But for him, it reminded him, and so this is always, I'm always cautious of words that have power, and they mean different things to different people at different times. And I said, talk to me about that. Why do you hate that word? And he said, because it made me remind me of something like I have to overcome instead of adapt to. Right. And I said, okay. Because in my group, we don't use the word recovery.
Okay.
And it's not that I hate the word. It's just recovery. I have found makes people believe that they're going to go back to the way they were. Right. Like if I recovered, I got back. I recovered. I went back. Whereas so we tend to use how did I adapt? Right. But either way, you know what I mean? Like if people feel good with recovery, it's just been my consensus was it makes people in my group feel like they're doing something wrong, whereas adapting gave them a different energetic of, okay, how do I work with this? Right? You know what I mean? Like maybe I didn't recover, so I don't feel good enough, but if I say I adapted, now I feel empowered.
Interesting. Power words. So it's something that it works. But I love words. I love words. I do love words. I love words. But to trigger you like this is interesting here.
Yeah, I'm always intrigued to learn from other survivors and to see that. And I get it. If you sit with words, like I tell people, like when we hear this a lot all the time. If you say I have to versus I get to, right? Like I have to feels like it weighs a lot. Like I got to do this. Right, but if I get to now, right, I feel empowered. Like, oh, this is my choice. I get to do this. I get to learn how to XYZ. See, the shift in energy changes and that perspective changes. So it makes you feel more self-empowered. So that's where that whole mindset comes in. You know what I mean? Like, how am I looking at things and how can I use words to make me feel empowered? And maybe my words might not work for you, right? Or somebody else. So I always tell people that, like, find your words.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like for me, Survivor is empowering. I don't have an issue with it. So, but I get people who do, some do, and don't like it, and I honor that. So it's always find your words and that feeling empowered, but see how you can shift where you're feeling not so empowered to okay, that makes me feel better. Because we get that a lot, especially as survivors. We're told all the time what we can't do.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
All the time. You got doctors, therapists, all like, you can't do this, you can't. And so in my group, I'm like, I know what you can't do. We can honor that, but what can you do? Let's talk about that. Yeah.
I like that. So what do you learn about yourself through this whole journey? What have you learned about yourself?
Whew. I've learned that the human being in general, and especially myself, is a lot stronger than I ever thought possible. And I think, people ask me all the time, like, what was your biggest learning from having a TBI? And I thought I got life before. Like, I thought I really got life, but I really get life now. And I think, right, when you become that close to dying, you pivot and see what's really important and what isn't. You know what I mean? And I think that has changed me profoundly so much from the things around me to, what I surround myself with the people I surround myself with, like to just even sitting in the park listening to a bird sing. You know what I mean? Like I'm just grateful for that. I'm
The little
grateful
things.
for, yeah, the opportunity of just waking up every day and breathing and seeing life and understanding that, 8 years ago, that could have been it.
Mm. Mm.
You know,
Wow.
yeah, it's just appreciate. I'm grateful. I'm grateful, and I'm grateful I get to work with so many survivors and meet so many other amazing human beings. Because this group of people, they're so amazing. They're so giving,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right? Like they're just so
Oh
loving.
yeah.
It's like, right, you have every reason. Like and I could tell you about this. I have a survivor in my group. Not only does she have brain injury, she has cancer, and she just had her leg amputated.
Wow.
And she is one of the most inspiring, loving. She's out there doing adaptive surfing. She's out there doing sled hockey. She's,
Wow. Good job.
she just, yeah, and I tell her this all the time, and she's like, she doesn't see it. And I said, listen, you have every reason to hate life, right? Like, you've got every reason, and yet,
You don't.
she'll show up to group on her snowboard. I've had her snowboard, and I'm like, I don't know if that's a good idea that you're snowboarding while you're in group. Right, but I admire your commitment. The group all laughs and they love her, you know what I mean? And I said, please just be safe. Like, you know what I mean? But she just, like, that's how much the group meant to her. And, she's been a part of it. She's a big inspiration for a lot of people. And it's just, I always tell somebody, you want to find somebody that really inspires you. Go follow a TBI survivor.
Nice, Victor.
Yeah.
And when people say that all the time, like when you do a whole lot, it's like, oh, it's not the big of a deal to me. So people's like, whoa, they're blown away. They're blown away. It's like, oh, it's nothing to you, but it's never like so much. And this is a lot. This is a lot.
It is a lot, and I think that's why I get it. Not everybody wants to share their story, and I'm okay with that, right? It takes a lot to step out, especially in social media. People want to, but we do it. At least I do it so I can inspire somebody else and understand. Like, listen, I get you, and I see you, and I love you, and
yes,
if I can do this, I'm. I always tell my group I'm not special, and they always make fun of me because they're like, "What do you mean we're all special?" And I'm like, I mean, I'm not Superman, meaning you guys can do what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not putting myself down. They'll call me out on that. It's like, but I think it's important for every survivor to know that. You know what I mean? You can do this. It's hard and it sucks and
it takes work. It takes work.
It can take work. Yes, it takes a lot of work. But on the other side of it is people like us, and it's worth it. And you find gratitude and blessings. You know what I mean? And it's worth it in the end. People say, would you choose this? And I said, I don't know that anybody would choose this. You know what I mean? Right? But I would never change anything about my journey. You know what I mean? Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be the person I am today, and I couldn't be helping the people I'm helping, and I wouldn't be speaking to you.
Yeah, that's true. I have an acronym for TBI, and there's beauty inside. People have this connotation. Yes, it's into traumatic brain injury, but let's switch it to turn to something else. There's beauty inside. There's beauty inside each and every one of us. So you got to tap into it.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, my acronym, mine was transformation beyond injury.
I love that too. Beyond what?
Beyond injury.
Beyond injury. Okay. I like that too.
Yeah, like how do we? Yeah, you do, and it does transform you. And I always tell people, listen, everybody's changing. Everybody's changing. Nobody's the same person. When people go, I miss the old you. I'm like, were you the same person last year? You know what I mean? They're like, oh, well, no. And I'm like, okay, so like I just had my change at a warp speed.
Yeah.
But nobody's the same. So just give me grace and let's work on this. And they do. When you say that to people, and my group loves that, is like people kind of back off and go, you're right. We are all changing.
Yeah. So 2 more questions. I had this conversation yesterday. If you can guess, do you think more TBI survivors are emotionally, mentally, or physically? Just a guess. I don't know the answer, but just a guess.
I would probably say emotionally.
Emotionally, really? That's what they said too. Huh. Why
Yeah, I
emotionally?
think because I think the physicality we learn, right? We can adapt. You learn how to work with your body, and right, you can
Mm-hmm.
go through therapies, and I think we're all kind of used to that. People break their arms or legs, even though this can be way more severe. And even mentally, when you realize the brain is amazing and creates its own new neural pathways, and you're not stuck where you are forever. Hopefully things will change and grow for you. But emotions, society doesn't teach us how to deal with our emotions,
Mm-hmm.
especially the heavier ones, the sadness, the grief, and so a lot of us, and I think that's why unfortunately you see a high suicide rate in this group.
That makes sense.
And it's emotionally, I don't think a lot of survivors know how to navigate that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or can't, because we don't, right? The insurance doesn't cover therapy, or it doesn't cover a psychiatrist or a therapist, and so you're kind of left emotionally, dangling, trying to figure out okay, I hear you, but I still feel like this, right? Like I feel whatever way. How do I navigate this? And I think that's the tough part, is there is no roadmap, and there's not a really lot of good support, both clinically and, personally, to navigate those levels. I mean, I see it all the time in the groups I run. I have a woman right now who's struggling emotionally, and she'll come to group and say that. I am struggling emotionally. I am really struggling. And this is an ex NYPD officer. So it's not like she has never seen dark stuff or dealt with heavy emotions, but dealing with it on your own, and then you're dealing with a brain that isn't really working. It's like, how do I emotionally navigate that? And that's where I think it's support groups are essential. You know what I mean, in that area, and finding other survivors you can talk to.
That's right. It's been interesting you said that. But I know when I was first injured, I didn't know anybody with brain injury. So it's like you do feel isolated, you feel alone. So I do agree with this stuff.
Right. You feel seen. You don't, I didn't feel that till I went to my first retreat. And then one of the girls in my group, it's the first brain injury support group she ever found, was me. And she found me through my chiropractor here. She was in Arizona, and they said, "Hey, yeah, we've got this girl who has a brain injury, and we know you have the support group. Can we send her your information?" I said, "Absolutely." And she's been a part of it now for a year, and she's doing amazing. You know what I mean? But she'll tell you, she's like, if it wasn't for this group, I didn't know anybody. You know what I mean? And we see it over and over again. They're just extremely isolated, and it's already an isolating injury when your family and your friends don't get it. Like, you already feel that isolation. So now, right, your friends leave, people don't understand, and now what do I do? Where do I find? Right.
Got a round table about that. Round table about that. Lose a friend, lose a family. Like, got a round table about that one.
Yeah, well, we do it. Yeah, we did it at my group, right? Because that's a fact. I don't know any survivor that hasn't faced that, who hasn't lost friends or family, because they don't get it. You know what I mean? And that's the woman in my group now. She's like, so this is normal, right? Being in our group and being able to voice that, because she's feeling like her family doesn't understand, and they don't. They're telling her, you should be over this, or you should be doing that, and she's like, they don't understand. And so having a support group of other survivors to be able to meet with, right, whatever, weekly, monthly, locally, wherever you can find them, is so important, because you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel like, okay, these people get me, right? Like, don't isolate yourself more if you don't have to.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I didn't know it was called TBI. I know I was shot. I was called gunshot went to the head. That's all. That's what I knew about it. I didn't know the medical term was TBI. I didn't know that. So I learned some things. I was almost like the deer headlights. Like, what is that? Oh, okay. Well, it is TBI is crazy. Like, and it's even more intense. Like, open close, penetrate. Like, it's so many different terms.
Oh yeah, right, and a concussion versus severe. Now they're merging them, where they used to keep them separate. And I have people in my group who have had a stroke. You know what I mean? I had a nurse who had a brain tumor, You know what I mean? Like, I don't, there's some groups that will only take you if you had an acquired brain injury, right? Again, another term. What is that? Well, I had it by a fall. That's an acquired brain injury.
Yeah.
My group is like, I don't care how your brain got injured.
It's got injured.
Right. It got injured. Why do I care if you had an accident or if you know what I mean? Like that, you still need the help. So I don't get that. That's the other thing. And the other thing I learned of working with a bunch of other nonprofit brain injury groups, and there's 2 or 3 that I work with, they don't talk to each other. They don't talk to each other. They don't share resources. They all like want to like hoard, like, this is my brain injury group. Nobody. And I'm like, why are we?
It's a secret.
Well, I mean, like, you know what I mean? If we all talk to each other, we can help more people. Like, why are we? There's such a high demand and such a little supply. Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, it's funny.
It's crazy.
It is. Last question. Ask questions. Last question. What does brain injury awareness mean?
What is what?
Brain injury awareness mean?
What does the word mean to me?
Brain injury awareness.
Awareness. Okay. We were getting that echo on the awareness part. That's why I was like, she's saying word or awareness? I promise it's not my brain. Brain injury awareness to me can mean a lot of things. You know what I mean? And I think it's something I advocate with the other groups, and it's something I'm passionate about is let's be aware of everything, right? Like, we talk about the physicality of brain injury. They talk about, and I get it. We all have that, the struggles with memory and stuff like that. But I think the awareness part needs to open up to that emotional side. You know what I mean? Is we have to really talk about the struggles emotionally and how we can navigate those, and what will you go through emotionally, you know what I mean, as a survivor. I mean, we barely get a path because we're all different. There's not one that's the same. So I think awareness is as many survivors that can talk about it, honestly, I think are gold. Because I know with my own group, a lot of people are kind of sick of hearing it from clinicians, and it's like, I don't want to, even the groups that are run, they're like, I don't want it run by a clinician. I want it run by another survivor, right? Like, I want somebody who gets it. So I think, that's important. So as many of us that feel comfortable doing it and speaking out about it and sharing our story is really the awareness and the interest, because we'll talk about it. You and I, we'll talk about the emotional side. We want, these clinicians, a lot of them don't, because they don't know what to do. Right? Like, I went in and I'm like, listen, my pain is killing me. And they wanted to test me for diabetes and low iron. And I looked at I said, I'm never coming here again. And she's like, what do you mean? I go, I hit my head. I'm not diabetic. And I have low iron. And they're like, well, we don't know what to do with you. Right? Like, and she said that. We don't know what else to do with you. If physically this is all we can do, like, you're on your own. And that part of this needs to be fixed.
Yes,
like, we need more awareness around that and understanding that, and again, groups talking to each other, sharing resources, sharing each other's, social media and websites, and sharing other survivors, and saying, hey, even if I meet a survivor, go check out this person's website, go join their group, like, meet as many as you can, because we're all different. We all have assets and we all have stories that could help people.
Absolutely. Got a comment from somebody I met today, and it's called I'm going to get it right. I'm going to say group, but it's thank you so much for posting this. I really need to hear this today. Such a blessing. Thank you, Libby.
Thank you, Libby. I love that.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. Well, Beckett, this has been such a great time. Talking to you, I've talked to you all day long.
I know. I could. I'm like, this was a lot of fun.
It is. 30 minutes already. We're over that, but I thank you for your time and your patience. So, say everyone can follow you on Instagram or social media platforms. I can follow you and contact you. All those things.
Yeah, they can follow me at TBI Thrivers. Everything that I do is under that name. So the YouTube channel, the website, Instagram, it's all TBI Thrivers. Okay. So I made it really easy so people can find me. And, if you have questions or you have anything like that, I'm happy to do that. And please reach out to me. And if I don't know, I will try to find another resource.
It's hard.
Another person like yourself. Yeah, yeah. I think we can help. We can all help each other get through this.
Absolutely. It's not for everybody. God will help everybody. Each other. So doesn't need to hoard, try to, keep resources to yourself. So we're out here to help one another. In the end of the day, we're out
Yes.
here to help one another. So I wholly agree with that. But yeah, I want to hold 1 second. But I thank you so much for your time and to have this interview, to talk to you. We share some good laughs. This is so fun. So entertaining. So make
Yes,
sure
and I enjoyed it. So thank you for asking me and having me on here. I really
yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. So make sure you follow Beckett at TBI Thrivers on Instagram. All platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, every platform. You on TikTok as well?
I'm not on TikTok. I know
You're on
everybody
TikTok.
keeps telling me I need to get on TikTok,
Y'all
but
get y'all don't
it's
get about it. It's so
it's an
many. It's
energy.
so many. It's hard to keep up. It's a lot. I'm better on TikTok on TikTok. It's a lot.
I'll get there. It's
I
again,
get
it's an energy thing.
I get it. I'm ready on that myself, so I get it. I get it. So
Yeah.
follow Beckett on TBI Thrivers on all platforms. Also visit his website, tbithrivers.com. And are you going to meet up? You going to meet up at different locations, or it's only Arizona?
They're always on Zoom. So it doesn't matter where
Okay.
you are. I have people
Okay,
from
virtually.
Canada that are in there. I have people on the East
I might
Coast. But if you
go there.
yeah, if you go to my website, the only prerequisite I have for them, and I do it for Brain Memory, is they have to sign up every week.
Okay.
So if you go to my website, you can sign up there every week. The schedule's there, and it's just come whenever when you can, when you want. You don't have to show up every week, but if you need us,
Okay.
we're there.
Okay. So make sure you visit tbithrivers.com to sign up. You'll be a part of his meetup group. It sounds very wonderful when I can hear. I'll put another one myself. And so I thank you all for hearing Becca's story and just a great person he is. And so make sure you give him a follow. So make sure you show him some love in his inboxes and things like that. And so I give Becca a thank you for your time. And so that's all for next. That's all until next week. Remember, we all have a short. We have a story. You too, Jake wrote yours. American Ad. I see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.